everybody, and welcome back to another episode of In the Field with Sarge. I hope you all had a wonderful holiday, and I hope you had a great new year. So tonight's episode, what we're going to do is we're going to be reviewing the YILI Tent stove, which is listed as the cheapest tent stove on Amazon for about $128. And I have been doing a couple of burns in it already to check things out. There are a load of modifications that I would like to make, so we'll talk about those. And then I got a little inspirational, and I made some dehydrated sloppy joes with ground venison instead of ground beef. So we'll be cooking that up tonight for dinner. And then we'll do a couple of shout-outs and talk about a few things. All right, so let me get set up, and we'll get the stove lit, and we'll go from there. All right, so as being listed as the cheapest tent stove with a window, I stand corrected. It does have its drawbacks, and it does have its pluses. The first thing that I see is that the glass just slides into a track. There is no seal for it, and you do see it start to vibrate when you start to adjust your flue. The rings for the adjustment for the air intake and the door and the flue are rather small, and they do get very hot, so you have to be very leery of that. I have been watching Adventures with Spackman. If you haven't checked out his channel on YouTube, please do. He's doing a whole bunch of modifications to this type of stove, and I'll be doing the same following his lead. Now, I did do a couple of slight modifications. As you can see, that I added an extra ring to the door latch. It does come with screws, and all the screws are loose, so get used to it. If not, figure out a way to Loctite them in place that'll handle the heat, or put a nut on the back side, or just carry a small screwdriver so you can tighten everything up. It does come with a scraper slash poker. I don't recommend that you use it because it does shoot sparks up your stack, which in turn risk getting on your tent. Now, out here in the COVID base camp, we have the Eskimo ice fishing hut and a bunch of shipping blankets thrown down on top of a ground sheet, and that's it. We have no other insulation on the walls other than the fire blanket that I hang on the side of the tent to keep the heat down, and that's about it. The stove itself does have a very large air intake, so it's really nice to control. I'm pretty much of a 4-inch stack kind of guy because I thought I could get better control that way, but with this stove it's actually pretty nice. One other modification that we made is the stack temp gauge. Of course, you can't put a magnetic gauge up on there, so what I did was I clamped a tent stake to it, offset it so it kind of hangs down and touches the stack itself. Alright, so let's get ready to start it, and we'll get it fired up in just a second. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and get ready to fire this thing up. I'm going to use some kindling that I have, and some fire starters that are just 2 cotton pads with Vaseline in the middle. Really nice trick I learned from a good buddy of mine, Justin Sylvester, over at It's Good in the Woods. And we'll talk more about him here in a little bit, but let me go ahead and get the fire going, because right now it is 26 degrees outside and it's a little nippy. Now, as you can see, as it starts up, the glass starts to fog up. I think right for now that's condensation, but soot will build up on it. I don't know any tricks about keeping that glass clear. So if you have any ideas, put it in the description or in the comments below, and we'll try it out. We'll do a video and we'll experiment on it. But I have seen this glass get really sootied up, especially if you use any kind of sappy wood. You know, I even got crazy and tried to see how pinion wood would work in here. And pinion wood, of course, is very, very sappy. And it sooted the whole window up and the whole stack and everything. I had to go and clean everything. But I just wanted to see how it would perform in there, because it does seem to do very, very well with all kinds of wood. This might get a little noisy when it finally fires up. But as you can see, it definitely draws a flue rather quickly. And this is, of course, wide open. We're going to do that and get a little bit of a cold bed, and then we'll start adjusting things. But while we're doing that, the stack system is great. It does not come with a spark arrestor or the 90-degree bend like I have. I got that with the Fulton stove, so I figured I'd put the two together. If you have a TP style hot tent, especially the larger ones, the amount of stacks that you get, unless you have it on a pedestal like I do, might not make it. With the two sets of stacks that I have, I should be able to do it. With that, we'll let this cook up a little bit. Maybe even throw a little bit more kindling in there to get it nice and hot, but I think we're going pretty good for right now. We got a lot of kindling in there. And then later on, we're going to try to see how a fire brick performs in these. I'm not too keen on them. They're like the Duraflame logs. You have to constantly poke them and scrape them to get any heat off of them. But let's see how it does in the stove. I did make a little coal collector, just in case anything falls out. Alright, now the fan might get a little knocky at first, so we might have to take it off and set it off to the side so it doesn't interrupt the audio. So I'm not going to get into the weight and all of that. I think it's like 11 pounds. The stacks do fit inside the firebox when not in use. It does have a grate for the bottom, which is pretty good, but it's not high enough for my liking, so I might modify that. I did put a homemade spark arrestor on the end of the stack at a 1/4 inch mesh, and that's about it as far as modifications go, except, you know, I put this extra ring on here to latch the door. I'm going to make all these rings bigger, even the one up here on the flue, because they do get very hot. And of course, a lot of veterans that I know do have issues with their fingertips and touch and feel. So in an effort to be able to control that and not burn yourself, I think I'm going to go with the bigger rings. I might even extend the latch out and give it a little bit of a 90 so it's easier to handle and not in the way of the shelving here on the side. These make great warming racks if you just want to keep cooked food. You can put over here to keep warm, but it definitely does a great job. It does come with a stove jack as well, one that you have to cut. I have a modified stove jack that I made here, which is also encapsulated in a fire blanket. That way I could fit it in the window to the ice fishing shelter. So it does draw really good. It's not very smoky, depending upon how you have your flue settings and what kind of wood you're burning. It does burn really clean, nice fine ash. So I'm pretty impressed with it for a very cheap stove. It does have its drawbacks. You know, if you, like I said, check Adventures with Spackman, he's got a whole bunch of mods that he's doing and trying out. The top cooking ring, there's a plate up here that you can remove to put a pot on and make it like a a rocket stove. It's okay, but it from what I hear, it does warp. So my son is going to come in and probably tack weld that in place because, hey, I can still boil water. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be super duper fast. All right, so I just closed the flue just a little bit. See if we can get the stack temperature up a little bit. There is, I'm sure there's going to be several people that are going to say something about where I have the temperature gauge for the stack. The reason I did that is because I am almost on a flat plane here with just a slight angle. I want to see the temperature of the stack to make sure I'm not getting creosote buildup. One of the major issues with this type of stove is that the stovepipe connects basically upside down. So if you have rainwater or creosote or anything running down the stack, it will leak. Spackman has already made a modification to flip it around, and I'm going to be doing that myself. We'll do a video on that, and we'll go from there. That's the reason why I did that. All right, so while that's cooking up, let's go ahead and we'll take a look at how I've got the COVID base camp set up. I do have an extra large cot in place, so it is sitting somewhat catty corner, but let's go up and we'll turn around. There's my rations and supplies for tonight. It's kind of muddy outside, that's why I brought a towel in. There's the cot. In the back I have an extra can of propane if I need to use a tent buddy. And then over here I have the chuck box, and I just threw a bunch of stuff in there. I've got to go through it all and figure out what I'm keeping and what I'm going to take out. This was set up for a 2 to 3 week outing, and I just want to knock it down and take out some of the stuff, make it a little bit lighter and a little bit more usable without having to dig everything out. And we'll go back to the fire. We can even make a relaxation video for the fire. And that's the best thing about a tent stove with glass. You know, the ambiance that it gives off, the extra light. It's very, very relaxing. Great for meditation, all of that. And of course you can keep an eye on how your fire is doing in there based upon your air settings and all of that. Now as the stove heats up, you can hear the RPMs in the fan start to increase. It does get a little rattly because it's over that round plate on the top. So if it gets too much to where it's interfering with the audio, I'll just take it down. I will have to shortly because I'm going to put a skillet up there and we're going to cook some venison sloppy joes. Now I do want to talk a little bit about recent events and all of that that's going on with me and some close friends and all of that. You know, the holiday season was a real downer for a lot of people, especially veterans if they're by themselves. Sometimes they feel kind of isolated. I had a couple of friends over the holiday season that I had to talk with and help. All of that started to take its toll on me for a little bit, so I needed to take a little bit of a step back and reevaluate myself and the way things are going with my health and all of that. And that's why there's been a little bit of a delay, but everything's all good. I'm okay now. I figured things out, got meds straightened out, and all kinds of good stuff. So those of you who know me know that during the initial onset or shortly before the initial onset of COVID was a really, really dark period for me in my life. You know, my PTSD and all of that was not in check. You know, my mom had recently passed, and then shortly thereafter my stepmom passed. I had a couple of friends I lost to suicide, a couple of friends and neighbors to COVID. So it was a really, really bad down time for me. During that time, I actually found solace going up on YouTube and just, you know, scrolling around and checking things out. And, you know, I really didn't know much about YouTube other than I could get music videos on it and all of that. But I did find some folks over in England that magnet fished. I started a conversation with a group of them, and all of a sudden I was treated like I was part of the group. And I also found a guy here in the U.S., and I talk about him all the time in my videos, and you'll start to understand here in a moment why. Justin Sylvester, It's Good in the Woods. I really enjoyed watching his videos. They were very calming, very relaxing. His point of views and the way he does things were just simply amazing, and it really motivated me to, you know, to do something instead of sitting there feeling sorry for myself, and to get out and live. It was very motivational for me, and it actually, you know, between those two groups, it really helped me through some really dark times in my life. And as a payback, you know, the guys in England, my wife owns part of an online radio station called OutKast Radio Worldwide. She decided to sponsor them. We created a big magnet fishing family, and these guys are just unbelievable. If you ever get a chance, check out Northants Magnet Fishing, Peaky Dippers Magnet Fishing, Dudley Dippers, or Rusty Nutz Magnet Fishing. Or just search magnet fishing. Those groups will probably pop up rather high in the list. These guys are simply amazing, and they do it all for charity. Justin, on the other hand, I opened up a dialogue with him. I was just so amazed by his skills and what he's done and accomplished in his life. Very inspirational for me. And of course, as a way to give back, you know, I became a channel groupie. I learned from his channel, and I was always up there, and I promote his channel. The guy is just simply fantastic. I owe him so much more than you'll ever really know. Recently, he had a tent raffle that he gave away to all the subscribers. He had that. He gave one tent away, and then I was totally floored. He just decided to give me the other one. And knowing me and knowing my disabilities, he gave me a hot tent that really suits me. And I'm really excited to get it, check it out. I'm so thrilled and I'm honored. Justin, you're one hell of a guy. I love you, man. I've learned so much from you, and you're very inspirational. Moving on, I can't wait to get the tent and get it set up and you know, see how things go. I'm not going to do a review on the tent itself. You know, Justin has done many reviews on them himself. I think the reviews that he's done speak for themselves. I'm just dying to get out there and use it. And it's very motivational and inspirational for me. And I hope to be able to give back the same way he gave to me. Now, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take a quick break. I'm going to get set up, and we're going to go ahead and make that venison man-witch or sloppy joe, or however you want to call it, in what part of the world you're in. This was another inspiration by Justin. He dehydrates and makes all his foods. I actually dehydrated this, put it in a food saver. I really wasn't setting it up for longevity, because usually when I make meals that I dehydrate, I'm going to be using them rather quickly, so I don't really have to worry about spoilage. But I will be making some, and I'll do a video on it, and we'll get it set up for long-term storage. Lots of tricks that I've learned along the way, and we'll see how it goes. So I'll be right back. We'll get the food out and get ready to rock and roll. All right, I'm going to try to get in here, but if you can see, right there at the edge of the wood. Let me see if I can get something in there to point and have some light. You can see that black speck there. That's creosote dripping out of the stacks. Let me see if I can get in closer and not block it with the shadow. See it? Oh, and it's still dripping. Okay, and it's dripping. Let's see if we can get in there with some light. Right there. Can you see it? There it is. Now what I did was this section right here, whoa, there went my magnet. But this section here had some creosote in it from a previous burn from another stove. So I left it in there just to give you the example of the drip. And there it is. Now that in itself is extremely dangerous, and it's also highly flammable. So you could start a fire or ruin your tent if this stuff drips on it. So you have to be very, very careful of that. This is what that stuff looks like that drips out of the stack. It comes out like molten lava. And as you can see, it burns rather easily. And when it does burn, see how it kind of liquefies and spreads? And it stinks. Alright, let's get started to cook this dehydrated sloppy joe with venison. Now this was inspired by my good friend Justin Sylvester over at It's Good in the Woods, and he taught me about dehydrating food and camp meals and all of that, so I went ahead and expunged on his idea, and now I made my own sloppy joe out of ground deer. So I'm going to go ahead and plop that in the water. I think I might have a little bit too much water in there. We'll see. Alright, we'll let that water heat up first, and then we'll get the sloppy joe in there. Alright, so let's get that dumped in the skillet. We'll let that cook, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. And that's just about done, so I'm going to go ahead and plate this up with some potato chips. I'm sure Jameson, my dietitian over at the VA, will be rolling his eyes, but don't worry, brother, I'm still good. Alright, so let's go ahead and get this plated up, and we'll get right back to you. Alright, there you go. Outdoor food porn. There it is. Sloppy joe made out of venison. And I'm going to go ahead and enjoy. Give me a sec, I'll be right. This is really, really good. It's a great cold weather meal. Got venison in it, so it's the taste of the venison with the sauce that's on it is great. The onions bring out all the flavor. A little bit of smoke I added in there. Go along with some chips. This is a great, great meal. It's a rainy day feel-good meal. And boy, does it work great in the field. I'm going to finish this up, and I'll be right back with you. And as you can tell, I really, really liked it. So, with that, we'll chill out, enjoy the fire. It's 28 degrees outside. It's currently 68 degrees here in the tent, so I did open the door up, let in some cool air. It's just getting a little too warm.
what? I've been thinking about this all day. The idea hit me last night, and I just can't quite shake it. I really appreciate all the support that everyone gave and all the entries for these giveaways. And the idea was to pay it forward to the subscribers and say thank you. And sometimes when you do a giveaway, you're not necessarily paying it forward to a subscriber. There were a lot of entries where I did not recognize the name, and it was just, I'm in, which is cool. That's really cool. I appreciate that and respect it, because I did not lay down a bunch of rules for what it would take to win these tents. Links and shares them within minutes of them being posted usually. He comments on every single one of my videos, and he sends me some really nice messages letting me know how my videos and my lifestyle have inspired him to change his life, and how my videos have helped him get through a difficult time in his life. Some really deep stuff there, and some really, really solid support from this guy. So I'm gonna give the Hussar Plus to him. So in the field with Sarge, Cliff, my man, thank you for your support. It's awesome. It's really awesome. I really appreciate it, and you go above and beyond every single time. Thank you very much for supporting this channel the way that you do. I really appreciate it, and I hope that you enjoy this tent. So it's the least that I can do for you to pay this forward in this manner. So congratulations to Nathaniel Benoit. Send me your mailing address to my email, which I will leave right here, and I'll get that tent to you in the mail as soon as possible. Cliff, same thing, man. Send me your information, and I'll get that tent to you in the mail. And I also want to point out that I just found out about half an hour ago that the Hussar Plus has been discontinued, which makes me want to keep it even more, but I'm not gonna. It's going to my buddy Cliff. Hope you all had a Merry Christmas with your family. Thank you for your support. Happy New Year's, and I'll talk to you on the next one.